I've got my partner in crime back. 3 days this week, 3 days next week. That's how often Kylen Mills is going to join me. We're going to talk Warriors basketball. There is trouble in paradise. We're going to break down what's going wrong and how they could fix it. I don't know how Kylen feels. I think there's still time to turn this ship around. Let's see what your thoughts are, Kylen. You'll reveal that to the audience next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms at her name. Super easy, Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus, Saatsaz, on Threads at Dog Wild. Kylen, great to see you. Been a while. And tell the audience, how have you been? And also tell the audience, what are your thoughts on the Warriors 22 games in? We're past the quarter mark, being 2 games below 500. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Cyrus. Glad we got the band back together. Missed all you folks as well. Last week, Cyrus and I, our schedules were colliding. He's slammed with stuff going on with work and finals and grading papers. I'm also slammed, doing traveling, doing basketball. So good to be back with you. 3 this week, 3 times next week. It's going to be fun, even though the Warriors have not been fun to watch recently. The Oklahoma City loss came down to 2 very simple things. They plagued the Warriors all season. They plagued the Warriors last season, turnovers and fouls. It seems so simple, yet the Warriors can't seem to figure it out. Those are 2 categories that are truly self-inflicted in a lot of ways. The turnovers, so many that we saw were just stupid, not careless, just not necessary turnovers. There's some that you'll live with when the Warriors are trying to push the pace and maybe someone has the right idea and the pass isn't quite online. But it just seems like so many needless turnovers. And then fouling also has been an issue with the Warriors. And it was something that came up last season. They were not disciplined enough defensively. I think that the lack of size is a factor as well, and some of them maybe hacking down low. And they just have to be better all around. You also get some fouling when you're behind in rotations, and I just don't think the Warriors have been sharp enough defensively. Big picture, beyond just that Oklahoma City game, and I think, big picture, those are 2 issues that need to be addressed. But beyond that, the Warriors have to do something to change up the rotation. I believe Steve Kerr needs to think outside the box and do something different at this point. We have a large enough sample size to know that what they've been doing is not working. Look at the Warriors' record. They're in, I think, 11th right now in the Western Conference. They're below 500, and we have a big enough sample size that this isn't just a fluke. And so I think this is the point where you have to start tweaking things. And Steve did say last week, there may be some changes to rotations. We may look to change things up, but it has not happened swiftly enough, in my opinion. Looking at some of the stats, I know we've talked at length about feeling like the Warriors need to be a little bit bigger and even use the size that they already have. The small ball lineup is something I have an issue with. I know you do as well, but it's just like looking at the Warriors stats, the whole thing that Steve Kerr has said about why he likes to go small is to run teams out of the gym, and that he wants the Warriors to push the pace and use that guard speed. That's not been effective. The Warriors are dead last in the NBA in fast break points. That's not the only indicator necessarily of pace, but it is a good indicator of how much they're able to get out in transition. And the fact that they're dead last, not even middle of the pack, tells me that the small ball lineup and why Steve Kerr says he wants to use it is not working. They're not as quick as they were 5 years ago. Players are aging. You've added a old CP3 to the mix who likes to work in the half court. So maybe Steve Kerr needs to realize that this whole go small, run teams out of the gym thing ain't going to work this season for the Warriors. And then you look at the flip side, they're dead last in points in the paint. So there's not enough interior protection, not enough size. They're not getting to the basket enough. So I think points in the paint as well, going both ways. Like, They don't have enough interior protection defensively, and then also offensively, they're not getting enough of those high percentage shots that you need around the basket to be successful. And there's a couple different ways you can do it, whether it be the dribble drive, post presence down low, transition buckets where you're able to lay it in quickly. And I just don't think they're doing any of those things effectively, which has led to those numbers that you're seeing. So to me, there has to be major changes. At what point do you look at changing the starting lineup? Clay had a much better game against the Thunder, but by and large has had a disappointing start to the season. Andrew Wiggins, I don't think played his best game against Oklahoma City and has been very inconsistent. Something needs to change. I wouldn't mind seeing Jonathan Kuminga in the starting lineup. We've both advocated for more Kuminga, more Brandon Pajemski, more Moses Moody. Give more of the youngsters some of those minutes. And I'll stop it there. But those are a general, that is a general, just kind of my general consensus of where the Warriors are at right now.
No, you don't have to stop. You're on a roll there. I was loving every second of that. And those are great stats you bring up. There are two stats they're dead last, and you mentioned them. It's fast break points, which is very uncharacteristic of this Golden State Warriors team that for years has pushed blown teams out of the building with their speed, with pushing the ball, the transition points. And then they're dead last in points in the paint. And there is a direct correlation with that. Valley in the chat wrote that he still feels injuries and absences hindered a solid stretch of complete availability. No doubt. They've had some injuries so far. But the fast break points lacking is because we are fouling. That's partly true. Now why are they fouling so much? That's where size will come into that. When you're smaller, oftentimes you're reaching. Oftentimes you're doing whatever you can, fighting over people for rebounds. You're committing more fouls because you don't have a choice. You're just a smaller individual. There's a reason why Shaquille O'Neal and big players like that in the old days would get to the line routinely, is because what else can you do, right? I mean, it's physics. There's not much. So and this is where the small ball thing comes into play. I totally agree with you that as long as they play these tiny lineups, they're going to get punished inside. And the other factor too is when other teams are getting easy buckets inside because of how small you are, there is no opportunity to push the ball back. You get fast break points from good defense that causes turnovers, that causes poor shot selection, that results in balls,
long rebounds.
Get longer rebounds, resulting in pushing the ball. Did you get a chance to? I keep forgetting to bring up the soundbite for the show, but did you get a chance to read what Paul George said last week after the Clippers game pertaining to the? So he was very just like cut and dry, right to the point. He said that their plan of attack when they played the Warriors is to just attack the inside because of how small they are. That's their game plan, and if the buckets are easy, they score, and if they collapse the defense on whoever's penetrating, they just kick it out to a wide open shooter. It's crazy. Like part
of the interior problems, I feel like too, and Kevon Looney has always been on the small end of centers, but I just feel like he's been very ineffective this season. Yeah. Since we're talking about interior defense, I just wanted to point that out. I just feel like he's been very okay this season. I don't know if I can put my finger on like one specific thing that he's done, but it's just, to me, he has not played as well as he did last year or the year before in the championship run.
Yeah. And Solo, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to disagree with you about size correlating with an increase in fouls. It is pretty cut and dry in a lot of sense, in a lot of aspects there. I did a lot of research. In just a moment, we're going to come back to this, Kylen, and the numbers that to me are incredibly fascinating pertain directly to net rating. Net rating can be subjective. It oftentimes fails to tell the whole story, but it certainly paints a part of the story. And when we're 22 games in, we now have over a quarter of the year in terms of a sample size. So we're going to read those numbers in just a moment because they are very telling. And I think it leads directly to who the Warriors should start playing. They do have some size on this roster. I'm hearing a lot of the national media bringing up trades, and we can entertain that discussion. I'm not opposed to that, certainly, but they do have talent on this team. And and a lot of it just comes down to the minutes.
Part is that the players on this team are too talented to be playing like this and getting these types of results.
Yeah, absolutely right. So We're going to talk about who's leading the team and who is not when it comes to net rating. Got to give some love first and foremost to PrizePicks, one of our now longtime sponsors. And look, if you live in California, you get to play PrizePicks, even though FanDuel is still technically legal here. And if you're going to play your traditional online gambling platforms here in the home state of the Golden State Warriors, their namesake Golden State, you got to do the VPN route, or you can play PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy, not only made easy, but it's legal in the state of California. The premise is super easy. I've been killing it lately, Kylen. I'm having a lot of fun on it. And by the way, if anyone ever wants tips or advice with PrizePicks, back when we started, when PrizePicks first started as a sponsor, they gave $100 to every one of the hosts. And I thankfully have not needed to ever put in my own money, not once. So again, if you want tips, reach out to me. I'm at DogWild on Threads. I'll totally share my insights on that. But you can literally make money easy if you follow the game to the T. And it's not just the NBA. It's all about picking two to six players in whatever sports you want. You can literally cross a reference while you're playing one basketball player, one soccer player. I know the NFL is in full steam. It's Monday night. They're recording this, and we had 2 games tonight. Still don't understand why that came about, but regardless, if you want to pick your players in any sport, it's all about whether they're going to score more or less than points, rebounds, receptions, rushing yards, goals scored. You just got to decide, are they going to score more than or less than? Are they going to pass more than or less than a certain amount? You bet you get those correct and you win money. It's that simple. It's daily fantasy made easy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for first deposit match up to $100. That means when you start playing, they'll match whatever you put in up to $100. So you're actually starting off playing with double the amount you put in. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Kylen, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Locked On Podcast Network now has their own national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's called Locked On Sports Today. And in fact, when you're done watching our show on YouTube, it'll redirect right to there. Locked On is here for you 24/7. They're covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Look, Kylen 24/7 on social media. Follow her there. It's super easy. It's her name at Kylen Mills. I saw the graphic up for PrizePicks. Let me take that down real fast. And you can follow me on Threads at DogWild. Are you ready for net rating? Is there anything in the chat we need to get to before we get to who actually is bringing the numbers up and down? All right, here we go. Actually, I want to ask one thing of you, Kylen, before we get to the numbers real fast, because you haven't been on the show in a couple weeks, and I know the audience is sick of hearing me. I'm seeing so the other game, 2 games ago, I think it was. Jonathan Kuminga did not start the game. I already forgot who they played that game. He didn't come in until about 2/3 of the way through the third quarter, and then played the entirety of the 17 minutes from the moment he was brought in. And he kind of showed Steve Kerr that night, okay, like I can't keep this kid out. Like, he's important for this team. Yeah. And before that game, the Warriors had a 9-man rotation set. They cut down the number by 1. They started the season off with a 10-man rotation. And what we're seeing a lot with whether it's a 9-man rotation, 10-man rotation, is Steve Kerr is in love with having 2 point guards out there at all times. I don't remember this being an obsession. Now, granted, the Warriors used to have Andre Iguodala, who could play point guard. He was an excellent ball handler. They had Sean Livingston, who was an excellent ball handler as their primary backup point guard. But I don't remember this incessant need for always having 2 point guards on the court. That's why we see a lot of Corey Joseph minutes when Chris Paul is out. We're seeing Podziemski out there a lot with another point guard. Are you noticing that as well? And why do you think Kerr is incessant on that? Because when you have 2 point guards, unless there's an anomaly where the point guard is bigger than they normally are for their size, that's part of the reason why we're seeing the small ball so much, is Kerr just has to have, for some reason, 2 point guards out there. Why do you think that is? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, doing that can definitely make the Warriors vulnerable defensively because of matchups. So it's not necessarily great on the defensive end. I'll agree with you that it seems like he's leaning into that more this season. One instance where I am okay with it is CP3 and Steph closing out games. I do like at points the way that CP3 can facilitate and help Steph get the ball off ball, and try to help him get open with some of the other sets they can run when Curry isn't bringing the ball up. So I don't necessarily mind that late in games and the way that the Warriors have closed in certain instances, but Corey Joseph does not need to be on the floor with another point guard. I'm sorry. And I feel bad. I'm not trying to keep dumping on him because I've talked about him before on here where I'm like, why did he get the minutes that he got? I personally don't think he's done anything egregiously wrong, but I just think those minutes can be better utilized by the young players that need the minutes, need the development in certain instances, like a Brandon Pajemski, or they're just playing well and deserve to play more. So I just don't see a huge benefit of playing Corey Joseph with another point guard and not giving those minutes to someone else. Beyond just the size, I don't know.
Yeah.
We talk about multiple point guards playing, specifically my mind goes to Corey Joseph because I don't mind Steph and CP3 out on the floor together at certain points. As far as pods with another point, I don't think that's advantageous for the Warriors either. But to me, the glaring issue is Corey Joseph doesn't need to be out there. I think the Warriors have enough players who can handle the ball. They don't need him in the mix, and those minutes could be better served by other players who deserve those minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take.
I wholeheartedly agree. And especially when you're looking at a motion offense that Kurt adopted from Phil Jackson to a lesser extent Greg Popovich, you don't need this ball dominant, high usage type player.
It's very fluid. It involves a lot of freedom, and it doesn't involve as many here is this certain specific set where a point guard needs to set everything up 100%. It's designed to be that way. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I do not understand it. And again, if look at the rosters, I was having a debate with someone, one of my media colleagues the other day, going back just to 2022 when the Warriors won the championship. You look at that roster, and Chris Chiozza was the primary backup point guard that year. I don't know if Jordan Poole made Steve Kerr feel better about things. I don't understand it because they did not have a backup point guard that whole year. Chris Chiozza was the closest thing to it again, but he was a two-way player who was treated like your traditional two-way player, not getting many minutes. We only saw him maybe for half the season, maybe a little more than that. And then for some reason last year and this year, all of a sudden, we just always have to have 2 point guards out there. I don't understand it. Well, in just a moment, though, I'm going to read to you all the net rating stats because we have some interesting numbers there after we give some love to another sponsor pertaining to money and sports. But Kylen, you haven't been on the show since I've been talking about this in gloating fashion. Maybe gloating is the wrong word. In enthusiastic fashion that FanDuel has re-upped with the Locked On Podcast Network for all of 2024. What's your reaction to that?
Amazing news. I mean, this is huge. The Locked On Network is continuing to make strides forward. We've got the national channel now. And this is just another excellent way that the network is continuing. And FanDuel's been an awesome partner, so I'm pumped for it. And, any kind of sports gaming situation, it's only growing, so it's fun to watch.
Absolutely. And it's super fun. And, if anytime I travel, one of the first things I do is check and see if it's working, if I'm in another state.
Yeah, my husband loves FanDuel.
And right now, though, look, we're in the thick of the NFL season. The weather is cold, but the NFL offers stay hot with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That means just find the most obvious bet where the other team's going to win or your team's going to win, whatever, and bet $5 on it. You win that money line bet and you get $150, bam, right into your bank account, good as cash. That's $150 if your team wins. It's that simple. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, Kylen is with me 3 days this week. You're going to join me post-game tomorrow. The Warriors are in Phoenix. We're going to talk about that game in just a moment because Steve Kerr and his comments on the music there were in the news. We got a potentially funny soundbite to play from that. We got a post-game show on Thursday that Kylen, you're also joining me. Ron Kroichek of the San Francisco Chronicle is going to join me Friday. Wednesday is to be determined. But again, follow Kylen Mills one more time on all social media platforms at her name, Kylen Mills. All right, so let's go. The other day, someone asked me, they were curious, and I happily obliged. They want to know which two-player duos on the Warriors were most and least effective in terms of net rating. So the number is random. I found the top 9 for the most and least effective duos in terms of net rating. And again, in case you're unfamiliar with that statistic in terms of what net rating is, it's basically your impact on the court. In this case, which two players are bringing out the best of the Warriors, are creating a winning margin and a losing margin. So, for example, the duo that has the highest net rating for the Warriors right now is Steph and Chris Paul. They're plus 55. That means on the year, when those two have been on the court, they've outscored the opposition by 55 points. Number 2 on that list, can you take? I know this is a random thing, but can you guess? Because you're probably not going to get it, but that might help you with this hint. Can you guess who number 2 would be for for net rating for the duo on the Warriors that is outscoring everyone else? Any clue?
I would love it to be Jonathan Kuminga and somebody.
Ooh, that's 3.
I was going to say, I'm like Kuminga. I would love for it to be Kuminga and I don't know, Kuminga and CP3 maybe. I'm like, who is he paired up with the most? Sorry,
number 2 is Brandon Pajemski and Trace Jackson Davis. They are a plus 53. And considering how little Trace Jackson Davis has played this year, that's how much they've dominated when he's been on the court. Number 3 is Pajemski and Kuminga. Number 4 is Klay Thompson.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Pajemski and Trace Jackson Davis are plus 53. Number 3 is Pajemski and Kuminga plus 48. Klay Thompson and Chris Paul are number 4 plus 47. And this is the Corey Joseph. Well, you'll see his name randomly in here, which is kind of weird. But Pajemski and Corey Joseph are 5th at plus 43. Then Steph and Gary Payton are 6th at plus 38. Corey Joseph and Kuminga are tied for 6th at plus 38. Chris Paul and Saric are number 8 at plus 36. And then Pajemski and Dario Saric are 9th at plus 34. Are there any names out there that stuck out to you in terms of me mentioning them a lot? Anything stick out to you in general for who the best duos are?
Brandon Pajemski's name being at the top of the list is very telling. One of the common denominators in there is the rookie is making an impact. He is a player I've enjoyed watching who has pleasantly surprised me since he made his debut in NBA Summer League. And I think he's played well and he deserves more opportunities, which is part of the reason why I say that I like to see some minutes taken away from Corey Joseph and given to Brandon Pajemski or even some of the other youngsters. By no means am I saying that any of the Warriors' struggles are Corey Joseph's fault. I don't think he's done anything necessarily wrong. I don't think he's been bad even. I know some people, like to hop on the Corey Joseph hating train in certain instances. I don't think he's been bad in a lot of games. I just think that they have promising youngsters that need time, that need development, and that have been proving themselves and that they deserve more minutes. So I just think those minutes are more beneficial to be given elsewhere. But this isn't Corey Joseph's fault that the Warriors are having these types of struggles. But I think it's very telling that Brandon Pajemski's at the top of those duo lists in terms of the Warriors' most effective lineups. I think that's the biggest thing that stood out to me about all of that. The way Jonathan Kuminga's come on recently doesn't surprise me that he was up there in the top 3 of that list. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is that Pods, the rookie, is
absolutely
up. That's in multiple duos. That's fascinating.
Oh, agreed. And now in terms of the worst duos, and you're going to see a similar theme here, only with a different player, but you're going to hear one name mentioned a lot. The worst duo in terms of net rating, Andrew Wiggins and Stephen Curry, minus 75. Number 2, Wiggins and Klay Thompson. I don't think that surprises anyone. Minus 67. No. Number 3, Klay Thompson and Kevon Looney. Minus 53. Number 4, Wiggins and Kuminga. Minus 41. Number 5, Wiggins and Looney. Minus 33. Tied for 5, Wiggins and Dre. Minus 33. 7, Klay and Steph, the Splash Brothers. That is collectively they're minus 31. Number 8, Moody and Kuminga. That's a little surprising. Minus 30.
That's surprising.
Yeah. And number 9, Wiggins and Saric. Minus 28. Anything stick out there to you?
Not a lot of surprises in terms of who's at the bottom of the list. 3 players who we've repeatedly talked about struggling this season are Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, Kevon Looney, all among the bottom 3 duos. The fact that Andrew Wiggins and Klay Thompson are the duo with the second worst impact on the game, at least in terms of the plus minus, it doesn't surprise me because this has been a major down year for both of those players so far. I would love for them to turn things around and prove everyone wrong and show, why they're, NBA champions and to play the way they played years ago. But it hasn't come together this season for either of them. Like they have not been able to get out of that slump. And it's not just offensively not hitting shots. Defensively, there's been major lacking from Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins too. That's another thing that to me is detrimental to the Warriors. And you talk about them needing to get defensive stops, better protection inside, just a myriad of things that I feel like Klay Thompson just did at a higher level years ago than he's doing right now. And then Andrew Wiggins, I think you mentioned it already, just has looked lackadaisical maybe at times. Like, I don't know what, but he just has not brought the defensive energy either on a lot of nights. So it goes beyond just, hey, are they putting up numbers offensively? It's also, to me, the defensive end is an issue and a big reason why you're seeing that. What was the minus for them combined? Wiggs and Klay?
Wiggs and Klay. I closed the window.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say it again, but it's just like minus 70, really, guys? Like, it's just brutal. It's not a surprise, but it's brutal.
And here's the last one, and these are
individual. That's a big reason why. Sorry, a big reason why the Warriors also struggled that we have not addressed in talking about some of the issues recently. Yes, turnovers. Yes, fouls. Yes, we're talking about there being not enough size. They haven't been getting fast break points or points in the paint. But the fact of the matter is they also do not have a clear secondary scorer. And the 2 players who are supposed to be second and third best players have been non-existent this season. Yeah. Inconsistent at best, but have just not shown up. And to me, that's another big reason why it can't fall on Steph every night.
Agreed. And this is the net rating for individuals, which again is a subjective stat. But when you have a quarter of the season as a body of work and you combine this with what you've been seeing, I'm going to share the screen for this one because it's easy to do so. These are your net rating leaders 22 games in. Brandon Pajemski, the rookie, leads the Warriors in net rating with plus 50. Chris Paul, plus 47. He's back tomorrow in that Suns game. Trace Jackson Davis, for all the games he's missed, is 3rd on the team in plus minus in net rating with plus 37. All right. That says something. That means when he does play, the Warriors are kicking ass. Dario Saric is 4th at plus 36. Jonathan Kuminga 5th, plus 23. Gary Payne II, who we haven't seen in a couple weeks now, but there is video footage of him coming back. He's getting back in shape. We just saw him working out recently. He's a plus 20. Corey Joseph, plus 16. And then we see a drop-off. Guy Santos, plus 2. Lester Quinones, plus 1. Moses Moody, minus 8. And now we have our 5 starters at the bottom of the list in net rating. Steph is a minus 12. Something tells me the minus 12 for Steph is dragged down by him playing with the other starters. Klay Thompson, minus 18. Draymond Green, minus 33. Kevon Looney, minus 34. And then there's Andrew Wiggins, a player who has career lows in every statistic imaginable. I think that's a literal statement. You might find exceptions, but whether it's points per game, rebounds, assists, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, you name it. Certainly net rating. Andrew Wiggins is suffering at the age of 27. I don't think is he 27 or 28? He's in that range. I don't know if he's 28 yet.
20s, definitely not. He shouldn't be in the twilight of his career by any means where his numbers are this bad.
Minus 82 for Andrew Wiggins. And this is where, and we just saw, and you mentioned Steve Kerr talking about how he wants to change things up, right? And then what did he do right after saying that? We saw the original starting five out there again, who did play a decent half, but did not have a full game's body of work to be comfortable with. So what's the solution here? I mean, I feel like a broken record saying this. Trace Jackson Davis needs to play. I'm with you. Corey Joseph, even though he's a plus 16, he's not going to bring you wins. All right. You need some size and athleticism out there. What are your thoughts, Kylen, on all the numbers we just read off?
The numbers are interesting because they're making me think. I mean, something that we've talked about and toyed around with early on in the season with the Warriors' struggles is, should Clay come off the bench? But looking at Andrew Wiggins being a minus 82, I mean, does Andrew Wiggins need to be replaced in the starting lineup by Jonathan Kuminga? That's immediate thought that pops to mind for me. Jonathan Kuminga has not consistently played at the level we've seen him play at recently, but can he get there with more opportunities? Would he be bolstered by being put with the starters, or would he help the starters out? That's something, and you talk about needing size and athleticism. That's something I would like to see, or at least experiment with, because at this point it couldn't hurt. I mean, the Warriors below 500 losing, I mean, at least as of late, I don't know. Is it better or worse, Cyrus, when they lose 1 or 2 point games? It's like, at least
it hurts more. I think so.
But it hurts, man. It hurts. And
but I like what you're saying there. I follow with you that the team is still fighting. Like they're not going to be blown out. So that does tell you that they're not giving up, right? But as a fan, oh my God, I think it hurts way
painful.
more.
So to me, at what point do you try something different? And I just like seeing Andrew Wiggins at minus 82. And to me, he just looks like he doesn't have energy a lot of nights. He looks like he's checked out a lot of nights, and he's had a few games where he looked more like his old self, but not all the way there. At what point do you start having the conversation about Wiggins coming out? I mean, what are his numbers like? I don't even think he's stretching the floor at this point, and he hasn't been shooting well. It's been not good.
No, he's not doing anything good. Like Wiggins is not doing anything good. The why of that is one of the biggest mysteries, I think, period. I've never seen a player at this age. I mean, Wiggins was averaging over 20 points a game most of his years in Minnesota. The kid can score, but he's not even playing good defense. I mean, Kuminga is one thing with Kuminga I'm seeing lately, and Kerr's doing this, and I got to give him credit for this, is he's replaced Wiggins. No, he's replaced Looney with Kuminga, and that's been his one move for the end of games. I don't hate that, certainly. I think he fits in there, but it is gnarly. This whole thing is crazy. The Wiggins drop off, I don't know what the hell. Let me know if you agree with this or not. I feel like my biggest criticism of Kerr right now is that he's not playing the best players. He's playing his favorite players. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, he's loyal to a fault. We've talked about this before. He'll ride his, former title winners and guys who've been around the organization for a decade and all this stuff until they're ready to ride off into the sunset before giving the young guys a true opportunity, which is why I think the next couple of years are going to be very interesting in the Golden State Warriors organization, because at some point the torch has to be handed off. When is that going to happen? How does it happen? Those are very difficult and delicate decisions that come from the top down. Steve Kerr's involved in that in terms of determining the playing time and rotations. And we're about out of time for tonight. And it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out tomorrow. But, at some point, he's got to truly give the young guys a chance. And I mean, a chance to take on big roles, maybe even flirting with the starting lineup.
I agree. I want to see Trace Jackson Davis. Kuminga had 24 points and 12 rebounds last game. Give the kid a shot. You and I, we've talked about Moody, how much we love him. Pajemski clearly belongs. But, I mean, I think it's evident who they should be playing. Chris Paul will play tomorrow. Any final thoughts, Kylen? We got 30 seconds. Time flies when we do this show.
Excited. I know. I can't believe it flew by. I'm excited to get CP3 back with this group because I think they need his veteran leadership. They need his presence at this point. Corey Joseph, I think minutes will diminish as we were talking about him. And he just doesn't emulate or replicate what CP3 does. I have one who's been pleasantly surprised by what he's done throughout the season, fitting in with the Warriors. So excited to see how it shakes out. We'll be on here doing post-game tomorrow.
Absolutely. See you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you again, Kylen. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Night-night.